I think for you, you represent so much. Being a double minority, right? An African American who is a female, proudly so. What do you think of where women are in positions of power, and where would you like for you to see that?
Women have made incredible strides. Black women have made remarkable strides, but there are still places we are either not admitted to, or one of us gets to stick our head in and the rest of us are told, we let one of you in, go away. And so there's never been a black woman governor in the history of the United States. In 246 years, not a single black woman has ever been elected to the highest executive office at the state level. And your eyes are really big. And the reality is, it's a consequence of how we think about women's leadership and black women's leadership in particular. Black women have made strides as mayors. We've had a U.S. Senator, we've got a vice president, but getting black women into the position of power that has the most direct control over our daily lives, that's what the governor is. Most people know the presidency, they know the mayor, but it's the governor who decides how funds are allocated for education, for housing, for healthcare, for how you make your living. And we've never had a black woman in that position. When I was the nominee in 2018, I became the first black woman in American history to even be nominated. And the fact that waited until 2018 is concerning. And so I think while we have made progress, we can never rest on our laurels, because the places where we are not permitted, the places we have not been able to advance into, are often the spaces where we need to be the most. For me, the issue of reproductive care, that's a governor's decision. The issues of mass incarceration, that's often determined by governors. Whether or not we have affordable housing, that's what the governors help direct. All of those conversations that we're having at the kitchen table or in the car, the conversations we're having during commercial, those conversations are often driven not by who the president is and not by who the mayor is, but by who the governor is. And so for me, it is a critical job that so few people understand, but it controls so much of the outcomes of our lives.
Right. So even with that, I think I commend you for being so, or just persevering through so much adversity. And I only can imagine what you go through on a day-to-day basis. But why do you keep going and going? Like, I want to hear from you, because this is not your first time running for governor.
It is not.
Right? And I think people, not only myself, but for the viewer, just to see, like, listen, hey, this is something that I believe in. This isn't something that I know change is near, and I want to be that change, right? So what keeps you replenished? What keeps you, pushing towards like what you want and not giving up, so to speak?
So I told you my mom was a librarian, my dad was a shipyard worker. My parents were working poor. Like, they worked full time, but could never.
He was a longshoreman?
So a shipbuilder.
Okay.
So shipyard worker. So he worked his way up, but longshoremen had labor unions. He didn't. And so when my dad got hurt on the job, they refused to pay his workers' comp. My mom was basically the primary breadwinner when my dad was delivering pizzas, trying to get his body back in shape, because he broke his back, and they wouldn't pay his workers' comp. And so I grew up in a space where we had so little, and even before my dad got hurt, there were economic challenges. But my parents made us volunteer. They would take us out to volunteer every week, because they would tell us, my dad's way of saying it is, having nothing is not an excuse for doing nothing. Your job was to help other people, because no matter how bad your life was, there's someone who had a story you didn't know, and they needed you. And for me, that was why I ran for governor, because I've had this extraordinary privilege. I got to go to Spelman College and Texas for grad school and Yale for law school. I got to be an attorney and a writer. But not any of those things were predicted. They were because my parents raised me to think that you try, and if you don't succeed, try again. You plan, you educate yourself, you do what you can. And when you have setbacks, you don't let those set you back. You acknowledge it, and you find the next thing to do, as long as your mission remains. And so when I ran for governor, my mission was to serve the people of Georgia, and make sure that the millions of people who watch everyone else get more. And they don't want to take anything from anyone. They just want to be able to take care of themselves, take care of their families, but they can't figure out why it hasn't worked or why it's so hard. I know what the answer is. I know what government can do if it works well. And when I applied in 18 and didn't get the job, it would have been, for me, there was never a question of giving up because I said this is what I wanted to do. So my job was to figure out how do I do it. And so in the 4 years when I didn't have the job, I found ways to help people with healthcare, to help them with access to their businesses. I helped folks, I paid off medical debt for folks. I did all of the things that I could do without the job. But the work that can still be done is so critical. And the people who need that work are still here.
Right.
We have a 20% poverty rate among our children in Georgia, 14% poverty, but we also have people in the middle class who are barely hanging on or who just want to do a little bit better for their kids.
Right.
They need someone who's there to help them. And that's all government is. Government is us coming together to help each other. So it's a very long way of saying, I don't quit because I actually believe that my job is to serve. My parents are ministers. They were called to save people's souls. I don't have that kind of patience or time.
Yeah.
My goal is to help people's lives get better. And I can't solve your problems for you, but I can move some of the obstacles out of the way and help you build the roadmap that gets you where you want to go.